Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our 100 C Sharp interview questions deep dive series. I am Jay, and today we are unlocking the foundational power of C Sharp by explaining a very important question: what are the key features of C Sharp? This is the question number 2 in this series of 100 questions, which we are going to deep dive today. So, let's start right away. So, let me repeat again. The question which we are going to cover it, what are the key features of C Sharp? In previous episode, I actually touched base what exactly is the C Sharp as a language, and in this episode, we are going to cover the features of C Sharp which make this as a remarkable language, which most of the developers like it. And once again, I mean, the theme of this series, as you know, that it is a deep dive series. So I am not going to just cover one or two one liner answer. Rather than the objective and the theme of this series is to go in a detail. So you don't have to memorize it, rather you can understand the concepts, and therefore it doesn't matter if interviewer expects one liner, you will be able to do that. But at the same time, you will be able to clearly explain the concepts behind it, the reasoning behind it. You will be able to explain what, along with how, when, as well. So let's dive in right away. Understanding C Sharp core characteristics is not just about memorizing a list, it's about grasping that why C Sharp is designed the way it is. So, whatever, I mean, you see the features here, it's just not the fascinating words. There has been the real intention that why C Sharp has been designed with these features. So let's dive into all these features in detail. The first thing is that C Sharp is object oriented programming. This means it organizes software design around objects rather than just functions. It allows us to model real world entities and their behaviors in our code. And the main C Sharp core principles of OOPS, which is encapsulation, inheritance, polymorphism, and abstraction, along with the composition, C Sharp fully supports it. Now, one thing I want to clarify here, that in this episode, we are not going into the deep details of these OOP principles. We have dedicated 20 questions, entire two modules, starting from question number 20 till the 40, and we will cover every small details about the OOPS, and we will go in very detail. We will open the Visual Studio Editor, and we will go with real, the samples of the code, and I will explain each and every small concepts behind the OOPS. And I can guarantee you that, I mean, you will be able to understand all these concepts. But coming back to this episode, which is about C Sharp features, right now I think it is enough to understand that C Sharp fully supports OOPS, and it supports all the features related with the OOPS concept. Now, coming back to another thing, which is the type safe. C Sharp is a type safe language. What actually it means that it is a strongly typed. Every variable and object must have a defined type. And what actually it means that compiler strictly checks for the type compatibility when you write the code, and it gives the error. Now, what advantage it provides? So it prevents common errors like assigning a string variable into the integer, just like, if you see the sample on this screen. So most of these, the problems get resolved because it is a type safe language. Now moving to next, the very rich collection of library. So C Sharp is having a huge, the collection of libraries. It leverages the vast and comprehensive .NET Class library, which provides an extensive collection of pre-built functions and types. What exactly is the library? If maybe someone who is uh, not very who has not used all these libraries. So the whole idea is that C Sharp is having the pre-built code, uh, which comes as a library which you can reutilize it to do your stuff. So let's say, regardless, if you are working on the networking or any security parts, authentication, authorization, you name it, right? The file processing, anything, any portion, any area, if you are coding it, you can utilize this library. Now, there are two very important, the features which I want to mention here, that platform independent as well as automatic garbage collection. So with the .NET Core introduction, which happened in 2015, C Sharp is a kind of language which is a platform independent. What actually it means that the code which you write it, you can execute on Windows, Linux, or Mac, as well as the mobile devices or the cloud platform. Another very important feature is automatic garbage collection. In other words, what actually it does, that it frees the pain from the developers to actually go ahead and the whole memory management thing, which in some of the languages you do through the coding. So it does the automatic the memory management through the garbage collection, and therefore the developers can focus on the main part, which is actually development or coding, rather than actually worried about that the memory leaks, or all the nitty and gritty things about the whole the memory stuff. Now this is a very scalable and updatable programming language. What actually it means, that the language has been built uh, with keeping in mind that it can grow with the demand, handling everything from small utilities to large enterprise systems, web services, and cloud, the native applications. At the same time, C Sharp is extremely fast. The language is designed for the high performance, with both its compilation and execution times being remarkably the quick. Now coming back to once again, to see these the multiple features, many features which C Sharp provides. For example, it's a very modern language. What actually it means, that it's constantly evolving, and that should be the first thing the these days any the modern languages should provide it, because the things are changing every the very the with fast pace, and therefore Microsoft has been actually it has been on the forefront. It has been the releasing the new upgrades, new feature constantly, and there has been constantly the improvements, and that is why it is a modern language. If you see the entire evolution of C Sharp, which I covered actually in my previous episode, they introduced C Sharp in 2000, the two. But if you see all these new features, whenever there is a need, they have been constantly they improving this language. Another thing is, it's pretty simple language. When I say simple, what actually it means, that it offers a clean syntax, and making it relatively very easy to learn. If anybody who is has very little experience or no experience, it's pretty easy to to start coding in C Sharp. So now coming back to just as a conclusion, C Sharp is obviously robust, and the modern language built on this powerful combination of all these features. So let's say somebody asks this question in an interview, right? Now, obviously, I mean, you can define the answer based on my previous question as well as this question. But one suggestion from my side would be that keep these, the three-step approach. That how, if somebody asks you what are C sharp, what are the features, what C sharp provides, how you will give the answer. So obviously, I mean, there are a ton of features here. Try to memorize two or three main points, and don't just try to give the definition which you memorize it. Explain in your way. So explain why it is beneficial for development and application building, and why, because this shows your understanding. uh, Once again, I mean, coming back to when you are trying to explain it, try to explain, the what along with, why, when, and how. So that gives the impression to interview that you not only memorize the things, but you actually do understand the concept. So that being said, that brings us to the end of our deep dive into the key features of C Sharp. I hope this episode has shed light on what makes C Sharp such a powerful and versatile language for building a wide array of applications. In our next episode, we are going to cover one of the very important and very frequently asked question, that what is the difference between value types and reference types. And I you should not miss that. So having said that, now if you find this episode helpful, please hit that subscribe button for step by step coding. Thank you so much for watching.